Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Paint a Mini. Okay, so I'm actually moving on to something a little bit different this week. I hope everyone forgives me. I just kind of wanted to take a little bit of a break from the Doom board game. I'll definitely get back into it, I promise I will, probably the next video, but I just kind of wanted to take one single break here. Anyway, what we're looking at right here, oh, I forget the name of the mini, technically. Well, it's a Reaper Minis. I think he's technically called a Hellborn Wizard or something like that, but he's kind of like a tiefling wizard. He's got like horns and then a tail here. But I figured we would actually have some fun and kind of paint him to look a little bit like Corvus from the Heretic game, specifically the first two. Now, he looked pretty dramatically different in each of those games. He had... you know, in the first game you really don't get to see him that much at all, really just him on the title screen, but he just had like a red cloak and then kind of a brown brown pants and a tunic, or a brown top or whatever. And then in the second game he was pretty much completely topless, but he still wore the brown pants. So I figured what we're going to do is we're going to do this red sort of like cloak or coat here. We're going to you know, leave him topless there, and then we're going to do brown pants. But the other thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to make him look a little bit more like Corvus, and to do that, we're going to need to customize the mini a little bit. So I actually want to get rid of this tail that he's got coming off of him there. So what I actually did was I went to the craft store and I bought some carving knives. I think these are normally for wood carving and that kind of thing. Wood carving. Excuse me. But these also work pretty well in these miniatures. And so I've just got a really tiny kind of U-shaped carving knife. And I'm going to use this to kind of start to get the tail out of there. You might just have to do little tiny pieces at a time. But I think this is going to work out pretty well. It might be kind of hard to get to an angle that works well. But... you know, just kind of shave each piece off of the tail individually until you get to the cloak, and then just try to kind of like smooth it out with the cloak. And I've also got a regular X-Acto knife here that we'll be using for that as well. Tell you what, before we get any further, actually, I'm going to take my X-Acto knife, and his tail kind of goes in between the openings of his coat there. Let's just cut that off completely. There's one. Might help to, yeah, it'll help to do it from the other side. Not bad. So we've got the tail separated from the leg there now. So yeah, like I said, we're just going to use this little carving knife here to kind of smooth out the tail to just be flush against the cloak, to make it just look like it's part of the cloak. That's actually coming along pretty well. yeah, it's kind of looking like the tail's just not there at all anymore, which is what we were going for. There we go. I would say that his tail is pretty definitively just gone now. But yeah, I mean, as long as you've got a carving tool like that, and you've got an X-Acto knife, and you've got patience, I think you'll honestly be fine. Honestly, as you can see, I've got you got some scraps on the table here, but don't worry about that, and just get rid of those at cleanup. Okay. That's pretty much all that I want to do with the customizing for him. One thing that I tried to do is I actually went to my game store, my local game store, to see if I could find a miniature that has a crossbow in one hand, and I was going to cut this hand off and put like a hand wielding a crossbow right there. And I couldn't really find many that worked out for me, so I'm just kind of leaving him the way it is. You can do that if you want to, it doesn't matter. I mean, whatever you want to do, obviously. You don't even have to remove the tail for this if you don't want to. You don't have to make him look like Corvus. You can just keep him to, look like a Hellborn Wizard or whatever, and just use the paint scheme that we're going to use here. Because I think the color scheme is going to work out pretty well. The next thing that I want to do, actually, is that I want to take off the base. I just want to cut the base off and put it on this base right here. It's something that I've done for, all of my Doom miniatures and for for most of my miniatures, actually. So I figured we would just take some time to kind of show you what to do with this. Now, there are two different ways that you can do it. The easiest way, I would say, is to just take an X-Acto knife like this and then just, go right underneath the heel of his foot or whatever, and then just cut straight down. Be careful when you're doing it because you don't want to cut off the heel. So this is kind of a risky way to do it, but if you do it enough times, you'll get pretty good at it. And if you can too, even cut into the base a little bit, and it's easier to shave off little bits of the base if you need to. So as you can see right there, I've got just a little bit of the base on the side of the foot there. Well, that's easy to cut off. That looks pretty solid. Okay. Yeah, that looks okay. Okay, and the other method that you can do to do this is to, I'm just going to cut off the base itself here. Oh, I would say, I'm pretty careful with what I'm doing here, so don't do what I'm doing right now, I guess. I'm just doing this onto, my little Lego surface here. When you're doing this, do it on a surface that you really don't care about at all, like use a cutting board or if you've got a table that you don't care about scruffing up and marking, do it there, whatever. But just kind of be careful. And then the other way that you can do it, this takes longer, but you could argue that it's a little bit safer. But you just want to cut around the base, pretty much, where the foot is. Be careful when you're doing this. Obviously, it's an X-Acto knife, so it's pretty sharp. This one is actually pretty dull, so I'm not super worried about, cutting into myself or whatever. But yeah, if you are using a new X-Acto knife, be super careful. Okay, and then the next thing that you can do after you've got the sort of just base underneath the foot is just kind of start shaving away the base until you get to the sort of heel of the foot, and just kind of be careful about how you do it. So just kind of, look at where the base, or where the base of the foot is, and just kind of, shave off the original base. That's pretty much it. But yeah, the way that I'm holding this, I would say don't hold it this way. because it is kind of dangerous to be, you know, doing the knife so close to the skin like this. I'm doing this, though, just to kind of show you on camera. Definitely, you know, hold it at a cutting board and then do it like this, you know, keep the blade away from your fingers. But again, I'm just kind of holding it like this so that I can hold it up to the camera and you can see what I'm doing. Okay, and then that's pretty much it. So I've got the base completely off of there now, and then I'm just gonna super glue them onto my black base here. So I'm just gonna take out some super glue. You really don't need very much at all. You're just gonna dot a little bit on each foot. Just set them on there. And that's it. Okay, so that's how you can customize, you know, the base and do all that good stuff. So that's good to know. If heck, you can use this knowledge even for when you're doing the Doom board game. You know, if you wanted to cut off the base and put them on your own sort of black bases like that. It is very important to make sure that that super glue is dry before you move on to your base coat, because if you get any super glue onto your paint bristles, your paint bristles are done. Your paint bristles are done. You're not using it anymore after that. So yeah, make sure, you know, give it some time to dry. So I'm actually going to give this time to dry, and as soon as it is, we're gonna get right into it. We're gonna start with the base coat. So give me a few minutes to let this dry. I'll be right back. All right, and as you can see, I did off camera. I did the base coat of black. So at this point, I'm going to run all of the colors at the bottom of the screen so that you know what colors we're going to be using. And the thing that I always say is that whenever you're painting any sort of humanoid or characters who are wearing clothes, always do the skin tones first. It's always easier to start with the skin and then work your way outward with each layer. So I'm going to start with this tan skin color. Okay, and I think that I'm going to use this this Reaper medium one round brush here, one size round brush, and you're just going to do all the skin bits. While you've got, you know, your point nice and fine there, it's probably best to start with the face. So let's start with the face. And the other thing too is do not paint the mouth or the eyes. Try to go around those. You know, actually, this brush is a little bit too big for what I want, for the face at least. So I'm gonna not use that brush. I'm instead going to use my Reaper size 0 medium, or no, sorry, small. This is a small sized round brush. So we're going to use this. There we go. That seems to allow a little bit more finesse. And yeah, like I said, just go around the eyes and the mouth. We're probably just going to leave the mouth black. I tend to do that with any open-mouthed minis. But then we are going to paint the eyes. And we're going to get into a small detail town. Getting his ears there right now. Okay. So we've got most of the face down there. There we go, that looks a little bit better, okay. Alright, so we're just going to work our way down his neck now. So he's wearing this this necklace right here with a bunch of stuff on it. If you can, try to go around them, but don't be overly concerned if you do get the tan skin color on there, because we can go around it if we need to. Sorry, I'm just touching up last minute details on the face here. At the neck, let's work our way down his chest. Yeah, like I said, this kind of sculpt, if you want to look at him as Corvus, is kind of like a mixture between how he looks in Heretic 1 and Heretic 2. Just because in Heretic 1, he's got the cloak and, he looks more like a wizard sorcerer character. And in Heretic 2, which I never actually played, but I don't know, it might even be hard to even find a copy of it anymore. But that one was, he was topless for that. I don't know why they went with the weird, dramatic costume art style change. It was probably just reflective of the gameplay change, because they went from first person to third person, and they went from kind of fantasy gunplay to kind of a weird magic hack and slash thing. I don't know. I've only seen gameplay of it a little bit. I haven't watched a whole lot. I don't know what type of game it really is, to be honest. But I really like the first Heretic a lot. I used to play that a lot. My brother is really into a lot of fantasy stuff, so growing up, he and my dad played, Doom and Heretic, but Heretic was one that my brother was a lot more into, and because he played it a lot more, I got curious about it, and I played it a lot, and I've actually just been replaying it a lot recently. I bought it on Steam, and then I actually downloaded the Doomsday engine, which is a gaming engine used for the original Doom engine. That like the graphics are nicer, the lighting is nicer, and there's free looking. You're not restricted to just looking left and right. You can also look up and down, which is pretty cool. Okay, so I've got the chest there. Sorry, I just really want to make sure the face looks right. Looks pretty good, okay. Let's move on to his hands, and I think we're done with the first part of the skin tone. So I actually made a video on here at some point, a little while back, talking about how I really want somebody to remake Heretic, actually, because like I said, I liked it a lot, and then, even objectively when you look at it, the game was actually pretty good. I was talking about, in that video, how like the weapons and the monsters they're varied, and it's satisfying to kill all the different monsters in the different ways with the different guns, or different weapons, I guess. And honestly, I think that it can rival the original Doom, which not many Doom clones can do. And I basically just said, I would like for somebody to remake this game, but basically make it in the vein of, Doom 2016, where it's very much an emphasis on the high-speed run and gun, action gameplay, but basically with a fantasy setting, and maybe with a little bit more characterization for Corvus, because he seems to be more of an actual character than the original Doom guy was. So I think that they can flesh him out in an interesting way. But yeah, I'll put a link to that video in the description for this below, because I basically just talk about how I think that it would be viable to remake Heretic, and I think that the guys who made Dishonored, the Dishonored games, and Prey, I think that they would be a good studio to do it. Arcane Studios, because obviously they've got a decent history with remaking games. I think the reason why Prey didn't work out so well was because the game itself was just overall a little bit too generic. but I feel like if they made Heretic in the same way that it made Doom, then I think that would actually work out pretty well for them. But I'll let you just go to the video if you want to check it out. Okay. Okay, and I think we've got pretty much all of the skin tone down there. Okay, and after we've got the first layer of the tanned skin color, we're gonna move on to tanned highlight. I'm going to get out a little bit of paint onto my my little surface here. As you can see, it's just kind of a lighter shade of the tanned skin color, which is what you want to do. And then you're going to move on to a dry brush. This is my small-sized Citadel dry brush. And the thing that I talk about with dry brushing is that you want to load up paint onto the bristles, but you actually want to wipe off most of the paint when you're done. Or after you load up the paint, you want to wipe off most of it, because the whole thing is that you want the paint to be on the bristles, but you want it to be very, very dry. That's why they call it dry brushing, because if it's wet paint, it's going to seep into the little deep creaks and crevices of the miniature, and the point of dry brushing is to just get the things on the top layer there. But as you can see, there's paint on there, but it's mostly dry. As you can see, like, nothing even shows up on the plastic there. But when you go over the miniature like that, let's start with the hand actually. When you go over the miniature like this, it kind of just brings a little bit more depth in there, a little bit more realistic shading. It's not super obvious. It doesn't show up on camera very, very well, but trust me, this is what you want to do. This is what's going to give your mini more depth. That's looking pretty good. Okay. Just do the same thing with this hand over here. Make sure that when you're doing the fingers here, don't go with the lines of the fingers. As you can see, each line separating the fingers, go this way. Don't go this way. Instead, go across the lines like this. Don't be really worried if you get some paint onto the staff, because we're going to do some fun stuff with the staff. There we go. That just kind of gives some depth to the fingers and makes the fingers kind of stand out a little bit. Yeah, you always want to start with the skin tone because it's easy to dry brush, over skin like this, and get a little bit of, paint onto the sides, and then it's easier to just kind of paint over the sides or the sort of clothes or the, surrounding layers more easily than it is to do the surrounding layers and then the skin afterward. So that's why we're doing this. Okay, there we go, and that just gives the skin a little bit more depth, some more layers, and that just makes it pop out a little bit more. So that looks pretty good. All right, and then we're going to move on. I think we're going to move on to the boots and to the staff. And I think that the boots and the staff I want to make a little bit, I'm going to make them brown, but I kind of want to make them a little bit of a darker brown than the pants themselves. So I'm going to start with a really dark color, really, really dark brown. And this is Dark Shadow here. It's brown, but it's really, really dark. So let's do this. Okay, and let's go back to our small-sized Reaper brush here, and let's just paint over the boots. Now you might notice when you're doing the boots that there's some buckles and that kind of thing on there, and we are going to go over those later on, but you can just go over all of them. It's going to be a lot easier to just go over all of the boots and then do each buckle and little art design thing individually after the fact. You don't need to leave them black. so we've got the boots done there. Let's move on to the staff. Okay, and I think actually now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to do the hair color the same thing. So I'm going to go over all of the hair. And this brings me to the horns actually in front that I mentioned earlier. I think that if you just kind of go over it with the hair color, and you just basically treat it like it's hair, it's just going to look like hair, and I think that you'll be fine with it looking like that. So don't worry about the horns. Don't worry about carving them out or anything like that, or whatever. I'm just gonna treat them like hair, and go over them like hair. Alright, so we've got the hair, the staff, and the boots all the same color. So I'm going to rinse off my brush real quick. Alright, and then we're going to move on to this earth brown color. It's basically a very similar like shade of brown, or a very similar, type of brown as the dark highlight, but it's just a little bit lighter here. Yeah, that's pretty dramatically lighter. So we're gonna move on to this earth brown color. And the first thing that we're going to do, actually, is we're going to paint the pants. So we're just going to use... Actually, I am going to go back to that one brush that I was using at the beginning, the medium-sized round, medium one-size round brush. And we're going to use this for the pants. Now, he's got a bunch of stuff. A bunch of, I don't know, little gadgets, gizmos. He's got like a little kind of utility belt on his on his belt. That's got it. Excuse me. Oh my. I just woke up recently, and I woke up and pretty much immediately started painting this guy, or started working on this video, and I always have some congestion in the morning. So if I sound funny, if I sound a little different, sorry about that. I just woke up, so I'm just refreshing myself. Anyway, yeah, he's got a bunch of stuff on the side of on his belt there. Just go over all of that with this same color here, and when you dry brush the lighter shade of brown that we're going to use later on over that, that's going to bring out all the details for it, and that'll look fine. I mean, it's not going to be the the most precise, high detailed, fantastic looking thing ever, but that's okay, because one of the reasons why I do these videos, one of the reasons why I like this particular style of painting is that it's really, really simple, and anybody can do it. You don't need to, and it doesn't take up a huge amount of time. It just looks good overall. And so that's why we're just going to do the really, really simple sort of ideas and designs for this. This is coming along pretty well. Most of my other miniatures, most of my other videos that I've done, I've actually, done that many before, basically. Like all the Doom miniatures I had actually already painted prior to making these videos. So I already had a pretty good game plan for each of those. And even the one Goofy mini that I made, Quan Chi, I had done that before too. But this guy I have never actually painted before, and this whole plan that I'm doing right now is pretty much completely just being made up on the spot as I'm doing this. But I think that it's kind of healthy to do that kind of thing with miniatures from time to time, is just kind of say, buy a miniature, paint it. Because if you overanalyze your minis and that kind of thing, then you can get like kind of backed into a corner if halfway through you're not happy with your game plan. So it's a good thing to do to just kind of mess around and just kind of improvise with your miniatures from time to time, and that'll help you just kind of learn and really get good a lot faster. I've found. If you just say, just do it, and don't panic and don't overcomplicate things, and just kind of have a good time. That's what you're here for, is to just kind of like mentally unwind and just kind of have a good time and relax, and that's kind of the point of this whole thing here. And I think so far it's going pretty well. Pretty happy with them so far. So yeah, now we've got the pants nice and done there, alright? So I'm going to rinse off this brush real quick. Alright, and the next thing that we're going to do is actually using that same color, we're going to go back to our small-sized Citadel dry brush. And actually, the boots, staff, and hair that we painted, we're actually going to dry brush this lighter shade over those. And the nice thing about this is that when you're dry brushing the boots over the pants, is that since the pants are the same shade of brown that you're using to dry brush right now, it doesn't matter if you get a little bit of paint onto the pants. So you don't need to really panic twice as hard and avoid the side bits and the other layers and that kind of thing, because if you get it onto the pants, it doesn't matter, because it's the same shade of brown that you were just using to paint the pants. Also, don't worry about getting a little bit of paint onto the cloak. I think we're going to do that part next, actually, but yeah, you're going to do the cloak afterward. Or no, sorry, before we move on to the cloak, we're going to dry brush the pants themselves, and we're going to use a lighter shade of brown for that. Do kind of be careful when you're going over the hair, because you do kind of want to try to avoid getting the brown onto onto the face, and onto the skin tone, onto the ears and that kind of thing. So do kind of take your time with the hair, but don't panic. I mean, like I said, you're just here to unwind. It'll look good no matter what you do, as long as you've got the right brush and the right paints and patience and goodwill. You'll be fine. You'll crank out some beautiful minis. And even if they don't look perfect, they are what they need to be. Just simple, fun designs. Now with the staff, what I was talking about earlier with dry brushing, going against the lines and all that, so the grains of the staff are actually moving upwards, so don't move with the staff when you're dry brushing it. Always brush against the lines, and that's going to bring out each of those nice little wood grains. Once again, don't be terribly concerned if you get a little bit of paint onto the cloak, because we are going to go over that. Now, as you can kind of see, actually, I left the top of the staff black. You can do the whole thing with this color if you want. You can do this whole color if you want with the staff. The dark shadow and then the earth brown over the whole staff if you want to do that. But I'm actually going to have some fun with this later on, and I'm going to get some weird energy color stuff going on there, which I haven't really messed around with a lot myself, to be honest. But hey, what I was talking about earlier, sometimes it's good and healthy to just kind of do some crazy stuff and be brave and just kind of go for it. So that's what I'm going to be doing with the staff. I'm going to be trying some crazy, green necromantic energy later on with the staff. Okay. So that looks pretty nice. All right. Now we've got the dark shadow there, dry brushed with the earth brown. Now we're going to move on to the pants. We're moving on to my favorite shade of brown. This is leather brown. This is my favorite because it's so versatile, because you can use it for so many... Ooh, excuse me. You can use it for so many different things. You can use it for, just for regular clothes like this. You can use it for, you can use it to dry brush over wood grain patterns and that kind of thing. Like, you could do earth brown and then leather brown for the staff if you wanted to, but I kind of wanted to make the staff a little bit darker. You can use it to do teeth. You can use it to do bones. It's just, I just love leather brown. It's my favorite shade of brown. Alright, so we're loading up our dry brush. Okay, and then we're just going over the pants with this leather brown color. Yeah, there we go. As long as you dry brush, a lighter shade of color over all of the weird utility belt kind of thing with all the stuff on there, that'll still bring out all of the details, and that'll still make it look nice without having to, take a little tiny micro detail brush and paint over every single tiny little thing, which I'm still going to do a little bit later on with just some touch-up stuff. But, yeah, that's it. I mean, that's all you need to do in order to make it look good. And that's pretty solid, right? I like it. Okay. Yeah, there we go. That makes everything look really nice, actually. I really like that a lot. Okay. And I think we're going to move on now to the cloak. And, honestly, we're probably a little over halfway there. I don't know, probably like 3/4 of the way done. We don't have a lot to do. Like, as soon as we do the cloak, we're just going to do the micro details and that kind of thing. Then we're going to be done. Oh, and we are going to play around with the top of the staff there too. All right, and to start with the cloak, we're going to do this really dark, deep red color. All right, and I'm going to move on back to my my medium 1 scale round brush. And we're just going to go over the whole cloak, the whole thing, including these weird, like, little kind of fur designs on the side, I guess. I don't know. I think that if we just do a similar thing with those, like we did with the utility belt, I think we'll be fine. So we're just going to do a darker color first, and then we're going to do a lighter shade of red over everything. And that'll really bring out all the details and that kind of thing. It'll look nice. Okay, and then he's also got looks like little buttons, kind of coat buttons, on the cloak there. I guess this is probably just a coat. Actually, it's less of a cloak and more of just a coat, but that's okay. Stylistically, it looks kind of like a cloak. Well, anyway, just go over those, and we're gonna go over them with some other details later on. Like I said, I think that we're going to touch up with some micro details later, and I'm going to use a gold color for a lot of those details, like the belt buckle and some other stuff like that, including these coat buttons. So just go over those. You don't have to go around them if it takes too much time. You can also just kind of go around them if you want to get some practice going around small details if you want to. That's up to you. By the way, the further you get with the Mini, like the closer you are to getting everything painted, hold the Mini by the miniature less and less, and try to hold it by the base more. Now, obviously starting off when we were, doing the skin tones and stuff like that, like you saw me holding the miniature, by the back and all that, and part of that is just because, painting the face requires some detail and some focus and some work, so I was just kind of holding the miniature in such a way to let me really focus on it. But now I'm just holding it pretty much entirely by the base because we've got paint over, almost everything, and I don't want to rub off any of the paint that we've already put on there. And if you hold the Mini, this way or anything like that for a long period of time, then you are much more likely to rub off some of the paint, and that's something that you would like to avoid if possible. Oh shoot. Got a little bit of paint onto the side of his pants there. I don't know if you can even see it on camera or not. A little dot right there. But that's okay. I think that's deep enough into the base of the pants that I don't think anybody's going to notice or care. And if they do, then yeah, whatever. Who cares? One of the things that I like to think with painting is that doesn't really matter a whole lot what other people think. What matters the most is what you think and what you're happy with. Because if you're just doing this as a hobby, if you're just doing this to have fun, it doesn't matter at all what other people think. You know, if you're happy with the way your miniatures look, then you're doing it right. You know? And that's what I like about my painting method that I kind of have here, is that it's less about, you know, doing objectively the best paint jobs and more about just doing the paint jobs that bring the most joy, that are the most satisfying to do, that look good for the payoff. And that's what I like about this whole method here. Okay. I think we're pretty much done with the base part of the cloak there. Yeah, we got it all red there. Nice. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. Well, first I'm gonna clean my brush off. Always clean your brush off after using it. You don't want any paint to dry on there, of course. And then the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna move on to dry brushing the actual cloak. You know what? Actually, I kind of forgot to get the top there because that's still pretty dark. So let's just dab over that really quickly. That's another reason why I like to say, in between steps, you know, just every so often, give your mini a real once-over. You know, look over everything and make sure that you didn't miss any spots or anything like that. You know, just to make sure that you didn't miss anything and all that. I think I did the same thing over here, actually. Same thing with this sleeve, so let's just go over that. There we go. That looks pretty good. Alright. Once again, I'm going to clean off my brush. Alright, and then yeah, like I said, we're going to move on to dry brushing the actual cloak with a lighter shade of red. So we're going to move on to this blood red color. And then we're just going to dry brush over the whole cloak the same way that we did our dry brushing techniques earlier. Oh, you know what? Give me a second. The battery on my camera is actually dying. Let me adjust for something real quick. Be right back. There we go. Okay, I should be able to get through this then. Yeah, just can't really do much with a dead battery, huh? Okay. A little bit of paint onto his hand, on the sort of palm of his hand there, but that's okay. That'll be fine. Okay. And that's pretty much it for that. Although, you know what? I think I kind of want the red to be not quite as dark. I think I want to brighten it up just a little bit. So I think I'm going to rinse off my dry brush. Although I guess I really didn't need to because the shade that we're going to be using is much lighter and is... It's not as crucial to rinse off your dry brush in between each paint that you do, but it's still probably not a bad habit to get into, so, you know, do that if you can. Okay, I'm going to move on to an even brighter shade of red. The label is faded off on the bottle, but this is Fire Red. There we go, that's a little bit brighter. I like that, okay. Okay. And then we're just going to use our same dry brushing methods that we were just doing. Hopefully this fire red will be a little bit brighter. Yeah, that looks a little bit nicer. Might be kind of hard to show up on camera, but to show on camera here, but yeah, I think I like this fire red a little bit more. It's a little bit brighter, more magic, I guess. Ooh. Be careful when holding the mini, just because you don't want to hold it by the mini as much. Like I said earlier, I mean, you don't want to hold it as much by the mini just because you'll rub the paint off. So sometimes, I mean, you kind of have to, but just try to avoid it as much as possible. Okay, there we go. I like that a lot more. That's a much brighter shade of red that really brings out the red in the cloak a lot more. So I like that. Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on. All right, and I'm gonna go back to my my small-sized 0 scale brush here, and I think I'm gonna use that blood red color because I do still like that blood red, and I think I'm gonna paint over each of these things on his little necklace here. Just take your time when you do it. One thing that I do like to tell people is that to steady your hands or whatever. Rest your hands on the corner of like a desk or a table or a coffee table or something like that. That's what I'm doing right now, actually. I'm doing this on my coffee table. And then, yeah, I've just got my hands completely on the desk, and that helps to steady your hands much more. There we go. That looks nice. Okay, I like that. Alright, and I think the next thing that I want to do... Let's see here. What do I want to do next? You know what? I think I'm going to do what I was talking about earlier with that with the gold color. And I'm just going to... okay. Get a little bit... You don't need a lot of paint here very much at all. I'm just going to get a little tiny amount. Okay. And then we're going to move on to... our itty-bitty, teeny-tiny 30-0 scale micro detail brush. I mean, it's so tiny it barely even shows up on camera. Okay, so I'm going to just dab a little bit of paint onto the tip of the brush. Alright, and then we're going to go over, starting with the belt buckle, I think. And then there are some like little buttons and buckles, you know, scattered throughout the little harness thing here. So let's just dot over some of those. That'll be fine. Like I said, you don't need to do a whole lot. You're just doing little touch-ups here. It looks like he's got little kind of like symbols or something on the shins of his boots. Let's go over those. There you go, they're like little wings or something. Okay, and he's got more little buckles on the sides of his boots here. Fine, okay. And now let's do the coat. Let's get those little buttons that we were talking about earlier. There we go. That looks nice. Got some nice buckles onto the side of the coat there. All right. And to be honest, we're almost done. The last thing that I want to do before we move on to the staff, that is, I guess we'll save the staff for last. But let's get brave. Let's get really, really brave. So we're gonna move on to. All right, I'm moving on to. This is another bottle where the label is faded off, but this is pure white. So we're gonna be using this white color here, and you don't need very much paint at all. Like I said, we're getting brave. We're gonna do the eyes. So I'm gonna go back to my itty bitty tiny micro detail brush. I already washed off the gold, but you don't need very much paint on the tip. And then you're just gonna paint really, really careful. I would say that if you can, go ahead and hold the mini with your finger just a little bit. Just, don't do it for too long a period of time. And then just kind of poke each eye a little bit. Leave a little bit of black separating the eye from the skin color, and that'll make it stand out. Alright, and then the same thing over here on this other eye. Rest your hands onto the corner of a desk or something like that. There we go. That looks okay. Yeah, like I said, I think I got a little bit too much paint onto that eye right there, but that's alright. I mean, this eye is the one that's going to be more focused on anyway. So we're going to rinse off that brush again. Alright, and then we're just going to use more of our pure black here. Now, one thing that is an interesting topic of discussion is when it comes to eye colors, some people like to have different eye colors for their miniatures. The only problem with that is that it's hard to make the eyes stand out when you make them something other than a really dark color. So I tend to just always do black, but if you do want to do like, green or blue or something like that, that's up to you, but I've never really been happy with doing that myself. But yeah, you just want to get a little tiny dot onto the eye itself. There we go. Alright, and then we're going to do the same thing onto the other eye here. It's looking a little wide-eyed over here. Sometimes, too, if you're really careful, if you did get a little bit too much white onto there, you can actually just take this black and then just really lightly go around the eye. There we go, yeah. Looks pretty good. There we go. That looks fine. Yeah, it's not perfect, but that'll work. That'll work out just fine. Okay, and then like I said, I think I'm gonna leave that mouth black, and that's pretty much it. You know what, let's do some other fun metal stuff. Let's use this black and the fine detail brush here to just paint each of his fingernails. There we go. Yeah, that just kind of makes him look more like a creepy sorcerer guy. I don't think he technically has these in the first game. I'm trying to remember if there are any weapons in which you actually see his fingernails. I know the dragon claw, you can see his hand a little bit, but his hand is covered up by the dragon claw. Yeah, I don't think you can ever really actually see his fingers. I don't know, I kind of imagine him having black fingernails like this, so I'm just going to do that. One thing is that I've also been playing a little bit of Hexen 2 lately, and I've been playing the, I think it's the Necromancer. And yeah, he's got like magic missiles. He kind of holds his hand out like this and kind of casts spells with his spellbook. And yeah, he's got really, really dark he's got black fingernails, nice and warlocky. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so cool. Now let's move on to that thing I was talking about earlier, though, where we're gonna have some fun with that staff. All right, so I'm moving on to this jade green color here. Alright, and I think what I'm going to use now is I'm just going to use a really old brush. And this is just an old, nasty, flayed brush that honestly, I don't even know why I still have it. I think I have it because of instances like these. Sometimes you just want to get, you know, some paint onto there, and I'm just going to load up the entire end of the staff. There we go. Okay. And then as we work our way down, we're just going to really lightly kind of start to blend it down the staff a little bit. It's not exactly dry brushing because you do want to get the like inner crevices, you know, in between each wood grain and that kind of thing. So it can be kind of tricky, but just kind of lightly dab as you go down, and that should kind of blend the green downward. Okay. And you don't even have to do this. I mean, you can just do the whole staff, you know, the just wood grain, you know, brown color. That's up to you. But I'm kind of doing this just for my own sake. Yeah, just kind of work our way down a little bit. There we go. Kind of blend the green into the brown. There we go. Just gonna really load up the tip though. Tip of the staff. Just the tip. I do like Archer a lot. That's a fun show. That's kind of a running gag in the show. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. All right. I'm gonna let that dry, so I'm gonna give that just a minute. All right, and then after that is good and dried. Yeah, it doesn't look too wet or anything like that, so I think that'll be fine. Okay, I'm gonna move on to this pale green color. This is just a much lighter shade of that green, and that'll make a nice complementary thing. So I'm just gonna move on to my dry brush. I don't even really need that much paint. That's okay. All right, and then I'm just gonna dry brush the tip of the staff, basically. Here we go. That looks nice and energetic. Looks like we got some real magic coming off of there. And that's pretty much it. So I think the last thing that we're going to do is I'm just going to do the thing that I do with all of my miniatures, especially Bones minis. So this was a Reaper Bones miniature, which is a really, really soft plastic. But I do this with all of my minis, and especially the Reaper Bones minis, is that I'm going to go over it with a layer of matte varnish. This is just some random little brand here of matte varnish. Oh, I'm kind of running out of places on my little plastic surface here. I think I'll put that right there. I think that'll be fine. Yeah, that'll be fine. Okay. Tell you what, I'm going to use that same brush that I was using for the jade green color, because you do want to use just a really nasty old brush whenever you are doing the varnish like this, just because it does kind of tear up your brush and make it really nasty and stuff like that. And if you just use an old brush that's already kind of messed up, you're not going to be hurting any of your newer brushes or anything like that. But yeah, we're just going to go over the whole guy like this, and this just adds an extra kind of layer of protection. You know, it's kind of like an enamel, and also it just kind of brings out the colors a little bit more. It kind of darkens the darker colors, and it brightens the brighter colors, and it just makes the whole thing look a little bit nicer. So this is another reason why I like this varnish. But yeah, you just want to apply it nice and evenly around the entire miniature. Hold it by the base. Obviously, you don't want to touch the enamel while it's still drying. But when it does dry, it's gonna harden, and it's gonna be nice and clear. Here we go. All right. And then that's pretty much it. So this is the Hellborn Wizard, or Hellborn Warlock, but we painted him to kind of look like Corvus from the Heretic games. I do like Heretic quite a bit. And that's it. So I will do more of the Doom board game. Don't worry, everybody. I know that's why a lot of people who subscribed to me recently did that, so that they could see more of the Doom board game. if you do want to see any more mini painting videos like these, if you like the tutorial, or if you just like to have this on in the background while you do something else constructive, like while you play a game or while you do any other sort of like art design or writing or anything like that, if this is just nice to have on in the background, go ahead and throw this video a like and subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time on Let's Paint a Mini. Thanks everyone, bye.